I still remember the sound of my mom's ringtone echoing through the hallway. That dumb default chime that always gave me anxiety. I was halfway through tying my tie in front of the mirror, trying to look halfway decent for prom, when she called out my name. Adam, your uncle's here. Her voice was tight, too tight. Something was wrong. I could tell before I even stepped out of my room. My name's Adam. I was 18 at the time, living with my mom in a small, slightly crooked house on the edge of town. We weren't rich, but she made sure I had everything I needed. Well, everything she could afford. I'd worked hard my senior year, managed decent grades, and had somehow scored a prom date with Emily, the girl I'd been crushing on since 10th grade. It was supposed to be a perfect night. One of those core memories, like everyone said in those cheesy graduation speeches. But instead, I was standing in the middle of the living room, blinking at my Uncle Roy like he had grown a second head. He was yelling. Not just angry yelling. He was red in the face, veins popping, full volume yelling. His brand new BMW, some fancy charcoal gray model he wouldn't stop talking about for months, had a huge scratch along the driver's side door. And according to him, I did it. You think I wouldn't notice? He bellowed, pointing a trembling finger at me. You little brat. That car was perfect when I parked it. Then you come along, and this happens. I was stunned, frozen. My first instinct was to laugh, thinking it was some twisted joke. But his glare told me otherwise. Wait, what are you talking about? I managed to say. I haven't even been near your car. Then, from behind him, stepped Daniel. My cousin, 1 year younger than me, full of smug confidence and golden child energy. He was the type of kid who always got away with everything. Always knew the right thing to say, the right face to make. And he was standing there with his arms crossed, pretending to look heartbroken. I saw him, Uncle Roy, Daniel said quietly. Adam had keys in his hand. He looked mad. I didn't want to say anything, but his voice trailed off, but the damage was done. Roy's eyes practically sparked with fury. My mom tried to jump in, tried to calm him down, asked for evidence, but he wasn't listening. None of them were. Not even my grandma, who sat silently in the corner of the couch like some old-world judge, her lips pressed into a line. I kept trying to explain. I hadn't even gone near the car. I was in my room for the last hour getting ready. But it didn't matter. Everyone had made up their mind already. My Aunt Janice, Daniel's mom, joined in, calling me ungrateful and saying I had always had a chip on my shoulder. My own prom suit suddenly felt too tight, like it was suffocating me. Get out of my house, my uncle said, voice trembling with anger. Now. And just like that, everything I'd been looking forward to, prom, the after-party, my last night with friends before graduation, was gone. My mom stood in the doorway as I stumbled outside, wiping my eyes. She didn't say anything, just watched. I didn't sleep that night. Or the next. Prom photos popped up all over social media, and I couldn't look at any of them. I didn't show up for graduation either. I told my mom I was sick, but really I just couldn't stand to see them all, my family, sitting there like nothing had happened. Like they hadn't accused me of something so ridiculous, so humiliating, and never once even asked if it was true. But what hurt the most, what really stuck with me, was Daniel. The way he looked at me when I walked out. That tiny smirk tugging at the corner of his mouth. It wasn't just a lie. It was planned. And everyone bought it. It was weeks later, maybe a full month, when I saw him again. The family cookout. It was supposed to be a celebration for my cousin Ava's birthday. Hot dogs, lawn chairs, the usual stuff. I didn't even want to go, but my mom insisted. Said it was time to move on. So I went, quietly, hoping to stay in the background. But of course, Daniel found me. He always did. You look better without that suit anyway, he said with a grin, brushing past me with a soda in his hand. I froze. The way he said it, it wasn't casual. It was mocking. Intentional. I stood there for a minute, watching him laugh with his dad near the grill, like nothing ever happened. And then, right as Uncle Roy took a sip of his beer, Daniel said it. Loud enough for a few people nearby to hear, including me. Man, I can't believe they all bought it. Framing Adam was way too easy. That grin again. That arrogant, careless, stupid grin. But this time, Uncle Roy didn't laugh. He paused, turned, and slowly, without a word, walked over to the garage where his tools and car supplies were kept. I followed his eyes as he disappeared inside. A minute passed. Then two. The party kept going. People were laughing, kids were running around, but my stomach twisted in knots. When Uncle Roy came back out, he wasn't holding beer or charcoal, or anything like that. He was holding something small, rectangular, and black. His dashcam. And for the first time in weeks, Daniel stopped smiling. I wish I could say the moment Daniel got caught was quick, loud, and satisfying. That there was instant justice. That the whole family gasped, turned on him, and apologized to me right there in the backyard while Uncle Roy played the footage like a scene out of some courtroom drama. But real life doesn't work like that. It's slower, stickier, more awkward. And sometimes, even when the truth is dangling right in front of people's faces, they squint at it, pretend they don't see it, or worse, they try to explain it away. When Uncle Roy walked out holding that dash cam, the shift in the air was subtle, but I felt it like a punch to the ribs. His eyes weren't angry like before. They weren't even confused. They were focused, like something had finally clicked. He didn't say a word, just tapped the camera against his palm a couple of times and looked over at Daniel, who had gone from smirking idiot to pale statue in about 5 seconds. Funny thing, Roy said, voice low but carrying across the lawn. I never checked the footage from that day. Figured it wasn't worth it. His eyes didn't leave Daniel. But you saying that just now? Well, now I'm curious. The grill sizzled behind him. Someone turned down the Bluetooth speaker playing 80s rock, and I swear even the kids stopped screaming for a second. Janice came over fast, fake laughing like this was all some kind of joke. Oh, come on, Roy. He's just kidding around. Boys tease each other. That's what cousins do. But Roy wasn't listening. He walked past her, nodding toward his laptop on the patio table. Let's find out. It took maybe 10 minutes to load the footage. I stood off to the side, trying not to get my hopes up. I didn't want to believe justice was coming. I'd been let down too many times by this family. And yet, I couldn't tear my eyes away from that screen. Roy fast-forwarded through the static dashboard view, driveway, garage, trees swaying in the wind. Then, the moment. There it was. Clear as day. Daniel, walking up to the car with a set of keys in his hand. Pausing, looking over his shoulder, and then dragging those keys along the driver's side door in one smooth, deliberate motion. He even had the nerve to smirk at the camera, not knowing it was angled just low enough to catch him. The footage stopped. Silence. No one spoke for a long time. Daniel opened his mouth first. That's not me. Even he didn't sound convinced. Janice stepped in, voice sharp. That could be anyone. The lighting's bad. You can't even see his face. Uncle Roy stared at her. You don't think I recognize my own son? Janice's face twitched. I'm saying it could be someone else. A friend. A neighbor's kid. Roy didn't say anything. He just stood up, took the dash cam, and walked back into the garage. He didn't yell. Didn't slam anything. Just shut the door behind him. That was the last anyone saw of him for the rest of the party. And here's where you might think the tide turned in my favor. That people apologized. That someone, anyone, said, sorry, Adam. We were wrong. But nope, that didn't happen. Instead, everything just got worse. Daniel avoided me like the plague. Janice made herself the victim, telling everyone that Roy was overreacting and emotionally unstable ever since he turned 40. And my grandma, sweet, quiet, all-seeing grandma, looked at me with a kind of uncomfortable sadness, like I was now a source of shame for having been right. That was the real kicker. It's not that they believed I was guilty anymore. It's that they didn't want to admit they were wrong. Worse, they wanted me to move on. Let it go. Don't let one thing ruin your relationship with the family, Grandma said one afternoon while I helped her water the garden. It's just a scratch on a car, Adam. I wanted to scream. It wasn't about the car. It was about everything. Daniel lied. He ruined one of the most important nights of my life. He humiliated me in front of the whole family. And no one, not a single person, stood up for me when I needed them. They didn't even ask me what happened. They just took his word and threw me away like I was disposable. And now that the truth was out, instead of fixing it, they wanted to pretend it never happened. That's when I realized something. I didn't belong in this family. Not really. I was always on the outside. Always the nice cousin, the quiet one, the one who didn't cause trouble. And they liked me just fine, as long as I stayed in my lane. But the second I became inconvenient, they cut me off without a second thought. I started pulling away, didn't show up to weekly dinners, stopped answering texts. Uncle Roy tried to reach out once, a short message that said, "Want to talk?" But I didn't respond. Not because I hated him, but because I didn't know what he wanted from me. An apology? Closure? Or just a way to stop feeling guilty? Meanwhile, Daniel went back to being Daniel. He never said a word to me, never owned up to what he did. And somehow, he still got celebrated. He got a new car for his 18th birthday. Some old Honda Civic that everyone fawned over like it was a Ferrari. He posted selfies in it on Instagram, captioned, "Earned it," with a bunch of flex emojis. I almost laughed. Almost. But that laugh died quickly when I saw what happened next. One afternoon, I was scrolling through social media, half distracted, when I noticed Daniel's latest post. It was a group photo, him and a bunch of his friends at a beach bonfire. But what caught my attention wasn't the photo. It was the caption. "Glad Adam didn't make it. Don't need any drama this time." My chest tightened. I checked the comments. Two of his friends laughed it off with emojis. Someone else replied, "Dude, you're still milking that? Let it go LOL." But one comment stood out. His girlfriend, some girl named Riley I'd never met, wrote, "Wait, he's the cousin you framed? You're such a menace." He liked the comment. I felt sick. So not only did he lie to the whole family, ruin my reputation, and walk away without consequence, he was proud of it. Telling the story like some prank he pulled in high school. Bragging about it. Turning my humiliation into a joke. That was the moment I snapped. That was the breaking point. It wasn't just about prom anymore. Or the scratch. Or the dash cam. It was about all of it. Every time I stayed quiet to keep the peace. Every lie they let him get away with. Every time someone told me to just move on. I realized something cold and clear that day. They didn't deserve my silence anymore. They didn't deserve my kindness. And I wasn't going to wait around for them to give me the justice I deserved. No, I was going to take it. Hitting rock bottom isn't always dramatic. Sometimes it's just quiet. I didn't scream or punch walls. I didn't spiral out or make a big emotional speech. I just stopped showing up. The day after I saw that Instagram comment thread, I deleted the app from my phone. Logged out of everything. Group chats. Facebook. Discord. I didn't want to see their names. Didn't want to read their fake little jokes or look at their faces smiling in some new photo while pretending like nothing ever happened. If I wasn't a part of the joke, I was the punchline. For the first couple of weeks, I was numb. I'd wake up around noon, stare at the ceiling, skip breakfast. My mom tried to get me to talk, but I couldn't explain it without sounding bitter or crazy. She didn't know about the post. She didn't know Daniel had been bragging. All she knew was that her son didn't go to prom, didn't walk at graduation, and now sat at home doing nothing. I could see the worry in her eyes, and it made me feel worse. Like I was disappointing her just by existing. Then came the graduation parties. My mailbox filled up with pastel-colored invites and shiny cards that said things like "Class of the Future" and "Go Chase Your Dreams." I didn't open any of them. I just left them stacked on my desk like some cruel reminder of everything I'd missed. I think my mom was invited to most of them too, but she didn't go. She stayed home with me, watching bad sitcoms and pretending like nothing was wrong. That was her way of showing love. I didn't apply to any colleges that summer. I had planned to, originally. Thought maybe I'd go for computer science or graphic design, but after everything with the family, I just couldn't bring myself to think that far ahead. The idea of being surrounded by people, of trying to start over, felt exhausting. So I let the deadline pass. My mom didn't push. I think she could tell I wasn't ready. But even in the middle of all that quiet, the world kept spinning. Bills came in. The fridge got empty. And eventually, my mom sat me down with a look that said, "We need to talk," without her having to say it. "I know you've been through a lot," she said gently. "But it's time to start thinking about next steps." I nodded. I didn't argue. I knew she was right. That night, I sat at my computer for the first time in weeks. Not for social media, but for job listings. I wasn't picky. I wasn't proud. I just needed something, anything, that would pull me out of the fog. After a couple hours of scrolling, I found a local print shop looking for a part-time assistant. Mostly helping with orders, sorting designs, prepping files. It paid minimum wage, but I didn't care. I sent in my resume, crossed my fingers, and hoped someone would take a chance on me. They did. A week later, I had my first shift. The print shop was this small place tucked between a dry cleaner and a vape store, but it had a charm to it. Cluttered shelves, a wall of paper samples, the faint smell of toner and coffee. My boss, Raj, was this laid-back guy in his 30s with a ponytail and a dry sense of humor. He didn't ask about my GPA or extracurriculars. He didn't care that I hadn't gone to prom or that my cousin had turned my senior year into a personal hell. All he cared about was whether I could learn the software and not break the printers. And for the first time in a long time, I felt useful. I learned fast. Photoshop, Illustrator, print calibration. By my third week, I was designing flyers and tweaking logos. Raj started trusting me with more complicated projects, custom wedding invitations, business cards, even a school's yearbook layout. And with every task, I felt a little stronger. Like maybe I wasn't broken after all. I saved every paycheck. I didn't go out. Didn't spend a dime unless I had to. My friends from school slowly stopped texting, and honestly, I didn't mind. I needed space. I needed to rebuild from the inside out, brick by brick. And somewhere in the middle of all that rebuilding, I found something surprising. I was actually good at this. Design, layouts, fonts, branding. I started staying late after shifts, working on mock-up projects just for fun. Raj noticed. He offered to let me use the backroom computer after hours if I wanted to build a portfolio. "You've got an eye for detail," he said. That's rare. It was the first real compliment I'd gotten in months, and it meant more than I could admit. By winter, I had clients. Small ones, local businesses, Etsy sellers, a couple of school clubs, but they paid. Not much, but enough. I made a little website, built a brand name, even printed my own business cards through the shop. Raj let me use his equipment on weekends if I covered the material costs. My mom cried when I handed her one of my cards. Adam Harper, freelance designer. It didn't feel like much, but to her, and to me, it was proof that I was still standing, still rising. I even started taking online classes. Nothing official, just YouTube tutorials, free Coursera programs, graphic design theory PDFs. I soaked it all up like a sponge. Color theory, typography, UI/UX. I kept a notebook where I wrote down every idea I had, every logo concept that popped into my head during the day. My mind was alive again. For the first time since that awful night, I had something that was mine. But success doesn't erase pain. It just gives it less room to spread. The family still hadn't apologized. I saw them sometimes, at weddings, birthdays, random events, and every time, they acted like we were fine. Like nothing ever happened. Janice gave me these tight, fake smile greetings. Daniel barely looked at me. Grandma treated me like I was a guest instead of her grandson. And every time I left one of those events, the anger came back. Not hot and sharp like before, but slow and cold, settling in my chest like ice. I didn't want revenge back then. Not really. I just wanted them to acknowledge what they did. To say sorry. To look me in the eye and admit that they were wrong. But they never did. And so, the part of me that had healed, the part that had quietly rebuilt, brick by brick, started wondering if maybe forgiveness wasn't the only way forward. Maybe, just maybe, there was another path. One that didn't involve screaming or public drama. One that involved patience and precision. Because here's the thing about working in design, especially for local clients. You start to know things. Who's opening a business? Who's planning a wedding? Whose logos are being registered? And whose branding is just a cheap Canva template. And one day, about a year after everything had gone down, a familiar name popped up in a casual email chain. Daniel Harper, opening a boutique clothing brand. He was looking for a logo. My logo. You ever get that feeling when something just drops into your lap so perfectly that it has to be fate? That was me, sitting in the print shop's backroom, reading the email thread about a new fashion startup in town, and seeing my cousin's name at the bottom like a poorly written joke. Daniel Harper, co-founder of Hollow Streetwear. At first, I just stared at it. Thought maybe it was a coincidence. Maybe there were two Daniel Harpers running around trying to sell overpriced t-shirts. But then I clicked the link attached to the mock-up site, and there he was, front and center, arms crossed in some wannabe GQ pose, under a pretentious quote that read, "Rebellion is luxury." I nearly choked on my iced coffee. The site was half-finished, slapped together on a free builder template. Broken links, placeholder images. But the idea was clear. Daniel was trying to rebrand himself as some visionary clothing entrepreneur. And get this, he was planning a full launch event. Custom merchandise, pop-up booth, local sponsors, the whole deal. I sat back in my chair and laughed. A full, real laugh. The kind I hadn't let myself feel in over a year. Now, I want to make one thing clear. I didn't immediately plan to sabotage him. I wasn't sitting there twirling a metaphorical mustache. But something shifted in me. A little click. A thought that said, "You're not the same scared kid they framed anymore. You've built something. You've earned something." And suddenly, I realized I had power now. Real power. You see, in the past 6 months, I'd become the go-to freelance designer for half the local businesses in town. Print shops, photographers, musicians, wedding planners, you name it. If someone needed a clean logo or a sleek website banner, they came to me. And I knew people. I knew printers, suppliers, event organizers. I knew what made a brand look legitimate, and I knew what made it fall apart. So I leaned back, cracked my knuckles, and thought, okay, Daniel, let's see how much you care about appearances. The first step was gathering intel, quietly. I didn't want to tip anyone off. Luckily, I had the perfect in. Daniel's business partner, a kid named Leo, had already sent a cold email inquiry to the shop asking about bulk printing costs for hoodies and tees. Raj had forwarded it to me like he always did with new leads. Looks like a student project. You want to handle this one? I replied yes faster than I probably should have. I crafted the most professional, helpful response I could. Acted like I'd never heard of Daniel in my life. I offered design consultation, brand mock-ups, even a special discount if they ordered within the month. A few hours later, Leo replied with enthusiasm. Awesome. Let me loop in my partner. And just like that, Daniel Harper slid into my inbox. I played it cool. Nice to meet you, Daniel, I wrote. Excited to help Hollow Streetwear get off the ground. He didn't recognize me. Not right away. I'd grown my hair out a bit. My email signature just said Adam H. And my website was under my brand name, Graymark Designs. No photo. No mention of high school. Just clean, minimalist branding and an impressive portfolio. He probably thought I was just another faceless freelancer hungry for work. And that was perfect. We set up a Zoom call to discuss his brand identity. He showed up wearing a hoodie with his placeholder logo, an awful-looking crown/skull hybrid that looked like it was drawn in Microsoft Paint. He rambled on about wanting edgy minimalism and urban rebellion aesthetics. I listened, nodded, took notes. Not once did he look at me closely. I wanted to test something. So near the end of the call, I casually said, just curious, how'd you come up with the name Hollow? Daniel leaned back in his chair, grinning like a kid who thought he was profound. Well, it's about how society's expectations are empty, you know? Like, we're forced to follow all these rules that don't mean anything. My brand is about rejecting that. Being unapologetically yourself. I had to mute myself for a second to keep from laughing. Unapologetically yourself, huh? Like lying to your whole family and framing your cousin? After the call, I got to work. I sent him a batch of logo options. Clean, sharp, modern looking. A huge step up from his original mess. He ate it up. Bro, these are fire, he replied. You killed it. I told him I could help with apparel mock-ups and even build the full website. Let's get you launch ready, I said. But we'll need to move fast if you're planning that pop-up event. He was all in. Over the next couple of weeks, I became his right hand. He trusted me, sent me his plans, the sponsorship list, the vendor contacts, even the guest list for the launch event. He was hosting it at a local event space, The Junction, a renovated warehouse downtown used for pop-up markets and private parties. I'd done flyers for a charity event there a month prior, so I already knew the staff. More importantly, I knew the event manager, Mel. She liked me. I'd helped her fix a last-minute banner printing mistake once, and she remembered. So when I called and casually asked who had booked the venue for October 14th, she checked and said, some streetwear brand. Hollow something. I smiled and said, funny story, my cousin's running it. Oh, no way, she said. Small world. You could say that. I told her I might swing by that night to see the setup. Family support and all, I joked. She said I was welcome anytime. So now I had full access to his brand identity, his logo and files, his clothing mock-ups, his supplier list, his event date and venue. And he still hadn't figured out who I was. But this wasn't just about embarrassing him. That would have been too easy. I wanted Daniel to feel what I felt. The slow erosion. The quiet humiliation. I wanted him to watch everything almost fall into place and then slip right through his fingers. So I started setting the pieces. Piece 1, brand sabotage. I created 3 alternate versions of Daniel's new logo. Slight tweaks. Subtle changes. One had a barely visible watermark embedded into the design. A phrase, written in tiny letters. I lied to ruin my cousin's life. Another had the text, fake, hidden inside the crown's design, only visible if printed on certain fabrics. Then, I uploaded all of them to the shared Google Drive folder he gave me. He never noticed. Piece 2, supplier mix-up. He asked me to coordinate with the print supplier for the hoodies. Said he wanted 200 black pullovers with the logo embroidered across the front. I offered to handle it directly, but instead of sending the final, corrected design, I sent the version with the watermark. On the mock-up, it looked identical, but once printed in high-res embroidery, that hidden phrase would show up, barely, subtly, if you looked close enough. I approved the order myself and scheduled delivery for 3 days before the event. Piece 3, website launch. Daniel wanted a sleek e-commerce site that would go live the same day as the event. I built it myself. Fast, beautiful, smooth transitions, integrated payment system. But on launch day, I would redirect the homepage to a 404 error message, one that read, "Site under review due to fraudulent claims." All reversible, all trackable to technical issues, and all perfectly timed to blow up right when people would be watching. Piece 4, the final stroke. I printed a poster. Just one, 24 by 36 inches. Full color. Beautiful typography. At the top, it read, "Some people build brands. Others build lies." Below it was a QR code. The code led to an unlisted page on my portfolio site. A project breakdown. A case study. Title, "The Hollow Brand, How a Lie Became a Business." And underneath, I uploaded the dashcam footage, a timeline of the prom night incident, screenshots of Daniel's Instagram comments, a write-up detailing how the brand was built on dishonesty. I didn't add my name, didn't gloat, just laid out the facts, neutrally, professionally, like a journalist reporting a case study. That was all I needed. A single poster, hung at the venue, right at the check-in booth. Mel said she'd let me set it up the night before as a surprise for Daniel. It would be. Everything was in motion, and Daniel had no idea. The day of the launch came crisp and clear, early October, the kind where the morning air bites a little but the sun promises warmth. I arrived at the junction before noon, wearing a plain black hoodie, nondescript jeans, and a ball cap pulled low over my eyes. Just another vendor, just another helper, just another background character. No one looked twice. Inside, the place buzzed with energy. Staff rolled in racks of hoodies, folding shirts onto long wooden tables with string lights dangling overhead. A DJ ran sound checks in the corner. Someone set up a photo booth. Everything looked good, like a real brand launch, like Daniel had pulled it off. He showed up around 1 p.m., all swagger and fake humility. Leather jacket, white tee, a phone in one hand and an iced coffee in the other. He looked around with pride, high-fived Leo, complimented the setup. "Looks sick," he said to no one in particular. Just how I imagined it. He passed me once, looked vaguely in my direction, but didn't recognize me. That moment almost broke me, not because I was afraid, but because the level of detachment he had, it was surreal. To him, I was nothing. Some anonymous freelancer who'd helped out. Just another disposable tool in his self-made empire. But he was about to learn. Because the moment those hoodie boxes arrived, stacked in neat rows near the back, fresh off the delivery truck, I saw it in his eyes. That flicker of excitement, like a kid opening birthday presents. He tore one box open, grabbed a black hoodie, and held it up to the light. "Dude," he said wide-eyed. "These go hard." He yanked one on, posed in front of the mirror leaning against the wall, adjusted the hood, then turned to Leo. "We need photos of this. Now." I slipped away before he could notice the embroidery. Because he wouldn't. Not right away. 2 p.m., doors open. The crowd trickled in. Friends, family, classmates, a couple of fashion bloggers, even one local news photographer. Daniel was in his element, shaking hands, posing for pictures, giving vague motivational quotes like, "It's not just clothing, it's a movement." I watched him play the role like he was born for it. Meanwhile, the poster I had placed at the entrance hung silently beside the check-in booth. People didn't notice it at first, but all it takes is one person. A guy near the front of the line leaned in to scan the QR code while waiting. Then another. Whispers started spreading. "Wait, what is this? Yo, this is about him. Is this real?" Then phones started coming out. Screens lit up with the dashcam footage. People zoomed in. Read the screenshots. Read everything. And then, the moment hit like a dropped piano. Daniel's own uncle, Roy, walked in. Now, I hadn't invited him. I hadn't reached out. But apparently, Leo had posted the event flyer online and tagged family and friends welcome. Roy had come out of curiosity, maybe guilt, Maybe curiosity. I'll never know. But he walked in just as one of the guests turned their phone to show someone else the footage. He stopped mid-step, stared at the screen, and froze. Then he looked up and saw the hoodie, the embroidery, the tiny, barely visible line, right under the logo, stitched in a stylized font that looked like part of the design. I lied to ruin my cousin's life. Roy's face turned ashen. Daniel hadn't noticed yet. He was too busy posing for selfies, still grinning, still floating on his imaginary throne. But the energy in the room changed. Laughter dimmed. Conversations turned to murmurs. People weren't paying attention to him anymore. They were paying attention to their phones. I stood near the back, watching it all unfold with quiet satisfaction. Not glee, not pettiness, just relief. Like exhaling after holding your breath for a year. And then came the moment I'd waited for. "Daniel," someone said, holding up their phone. "What is this?" He blinked, walked over, glanced at the screen. I watched his smile flicker, just for a second. I don't know what that is. Some troll." Another guest spoke up. "It's your cousin. Adam. Says you lied. Framed him. Ruined his senior year." More people joined in. "That's your dad in the footage. This is messed up, man." "Is this true?" Daniel started to sweat. No, this is fake. It's all fake. Someone's messing with me. It's probably Adam. He's been salty for years." But no one was laughing. Because someone else, Leo, had just looked down at his own hoodie and noticed the embroidery. He froze. "Daniel. Dude. What the hell is this?" Daniel turned. "What?" Leo pointed at the text. "Read it aloud." And Daniel finally looked down. The color drained from his face. He yanked the hoodie off so fast, he nearly ripped the sleeve. Held it up, stared at the stitching like it might vanish. But it didn't. It was right there, under the logo, on every hoodie. One of the fashion bloggers snapped a photo. Someone else live-streamed it. Daniel looked around, desperate. He did this. Adam did this. He hacked it. He edited the files. He ruined everything. But no one believed him anymore. Because the website had already gone down. The screen behind the merch table, which had been looping promo videos, now displayed a message in plain white text. This brand was built on a lie. He scrambled to the laptop, unplugged it, yanked the power cord like it would undo everything. But it was too late. The whispers had turned into silence. The kind of silence that crushes a room. Then, finally, a voice cut through it all. "Uncle Roy, I saw the footage, Daniel. I saw it last year. I let it go because your mother begged me to. But I should have done something then. I'm doing it now." Daniel turned to him, panicked. "Dad, no. Come on, it wasn't like that. I was a kid. I didn't think. You did think. You framed Adam, lied to my face, and then bragged about it." Roy shook his head. "This isn't about a hoodie. This is who you are." And with that, he walked away, just turned around and left. No yelling, no drama, just quiet disappointment. Daniel stood in the middle of the room, surrounded by boxes of ruined merchandise, a ruined brand, and a crowd that had already started backing away. Nobody wanted to be seen near him now. He tried to grab Leo's arm. "Dude, come on. We can fix this. We can spin it." Leo pulled away. "We're done, man." He left. Then the DJ packed up. Then the photographers. And within 20 minutes, the pop-up launch that was supposed to be Daniel's grand entrance into the fashion world was over. Just like that. He didn't say another word. He sat on a folding chair, staring at the floor, while guests walked around him like he wasn't even there. I didn't approach him. I didn't gloat. I just quietly left, hoodie up, blending into the crowd. But before I stepped out the door, I passed by the entrance one last time and saw Janice, his mom, standing there. She must have arrived late. She looked at the poster, then at me. Recognition flashed in her eyes. "You," she whispered. I met her gaze and nodded, then walked past her without a word. The aftermath? Well, it wasn't fireworks and lawsuits. It was something better. Real-life consequences. Daniel's little brand never launched. Sponsors pulled out. The event venue blacklisted him. The photos and footage circulated just enough to ruin his visionary image in the local business community. His reputation never recovered. He tried to rebrand 6 months later under a new name. Didn't go anywhere. Leo started a clothing line of his own. I helped him with the design, anonymously, of course. He paid well and didn't ask questions. I heard it's doing fine. As for me, my portfolio exploded. People loved the Hollow brand case study, not because it was petty, but because it showed strategy, detail, restraint. I got offers from creative agencies, startups, even a few out-of-state clients. Raj gave me a corner office in the shop and started calling me his secret weapon. I took a full-time contract with a media firm a few months later. Moved out. Got my own place. A clean space. White walls. Big desk. And on that desk sits one thing. A single black hoodie. Folded neatly. The embroidery barely visible unless you really look. I lied to ruin my cousin's life. Every time I see it, I remember that kid, 18 years old, standing outside his house in a prom suit, crying, with no one listening. I remember how alone he felt, how small, and I remember the moment he stopped waiting for justice and became it.